Hey guys, I hope y'all are doing good. Maybe you've never shot a trad bow before and it looks like a lot of fun and you don't know where to start. Maybe you're like a lot of guys and you've been shooting for a long time, but you're kind of disappointed with your results and you just think, man, it can't be this hard, it's got to be easier. Well, I've been shooting one for decades and I've trained a lot of people, and I've got a way I think I can teach just about anybody. Within about 4 weeks, if you've never touched a bow, I can have you out and killing a deer. Now, not everybody can do that, but most people that I've trained have been able to do that. You know, there's lots of different ways to shoot a bow. You can shoot instinctively, and you can shoot fixed crawl, you can shoot the gap. I've kind of got a mixture. I guess I've heard some people describe it as Gap-stinctive. And maybe that's a little bit different for each person, but let me tell you what I do. I started shooting this way back in the mid-90s, and I'd been 100% instinctive shooter, and some days I was dynamite and some days I was lousy. But once I started shooting like this, I really shot a whole lot better, and I think you will too. I want to mention just a few things here. First off, this technique, like most guys nowadays, you're going to shoot 3 fingers under the arrow with a high anchor point. Now what I like to do, I don't have a glove on, but take these 3 fingers and it's right here on this eye socket, this bone. I like to anchor and just split. This finger's on top of that bone and that one's below. Now you can anchor any way you want, but this, the higher I can get that arrow to my eye, the easier this is. So I'm going to anchor just like that, and this cock feather, the way I'm tilted, a lot of guys touch their nose, and you know, your face, how your face is shaped is we're all different, but I take that cock feather and it touches just on top of my nose. Most guys will touch it right here, but just, you know, if you can have at least 2 anchor points, sometimes 3, but at least 2. So my 2 is I want to anchor right on that eye socket bone, and I want to lay that cock feather right here on top of my nose. Now the other thing, a recurve, you grip it a little bit different than a longbow. A traditional longbow has got a certain way you want to grip it, but I grip a recurve, which is what this is, just like I would a compound. I've got this lifeline, and I'm going to turn my hand like that, and basically if you're looking head on, I've got these 2 fingers like that and these other ones tucked back. So my grip looks just like that. And you're not grabbing it like it's a hammer, like a handle. You know, you're grabbing it, so make sure you got you a good solid grip like that. And you don't want to choke, just squeeze the thing to death. You know, some guys just barely hold it. I'm you know, put a little bit of pressure with those 2 fingers. Here's another thing that is very important. Very important. And it took me years to understand what was going on here. But when I draw, you know, most people will say, when you stop shooting a compound bow and start shooting instinctive, or traditional rather, you want to drop about 1 inch of draw weight, 1.5 inches of draw weight. Well, for me, that is not true. I shot that way for years, and in fact, I started drawing really, really long, and the farther back I drew that thing, the better I shot. And I never really understood why. Like with a compound, my draw length was 30.5 inches. Well, I started drawing 31 inch plus with a recurve, and my shooting got so much better. And I think what that is you'll look is when you draw, if you're short, you see where my elbow, I'm exaggerating, but see it's out here. If you draw that thing way back, your elbow is more in line. And when it comes time to release, you're using those back muscles and you're just pulling through. You're fully extended, it's bone support. There's no muscle like this holding it. It's all just bone. So your release, you're just going like that. So to me, that is a very important critical step. If you can get that down, I think almost more than anything, that has helped me. So those are just a few really important things on this. Another thing, a lot of guys shoot a bow and they just kind of like when they shot a compound and their pin goes by the bullseye and they snap at it. Well, that's not the way you want to shoot. You want to shoot a bow like you're shooting a rifle. And if you shot a lot of rifles, there's different ways you can shoot rifles, but the best way in my consideration is to squeeze the trigger, just a slow squeeze. Squeeze. Same way with a bow, rather than just releasing, pulling it back and just releasing. When you get back, you just pull until it just comes off. It's a surprise release. Just like when you're shooting a rifle, you squeeze and it's a surprise release. The way I shoot, I'm just gradually pulling and it'll just slip away. So I want to clear that up from the very start. I want to put, everything else I do is pretty much the same as what everybody else does, but those are key differences that have really helped me. All right, let me explain what we're about to do. We're going to figure out what our gap is at each distance. And I want to do this at 10 yards, 15 yards, 20 yards, 25 yards, 30 yards. We want to go back in 5-yard increments as far back until you hit your point on, which for most people that's going to be anywhere from probably 25 to 40 yards if you're shooting a high anchor. If you're shooting a low anchor, it's going to be probably way further than that. To determine your gap at each distance, aim with your arrow point on the bullseye. The measured space between the bullseye and where your arrow actually lands is the gap. That's a good tight group. But back from around 20 yards, you can see here's my point on, which would be about 27 yards, and around 20 yards I'm high. So that's about where it ought to be. We're going to do it at 10 yards, we're going to write it down. We're going to do it 15 yards, write it down. Just keep doing that all the way back. Okay, that's 10 yards, and I'm 5.5 inches. It'd be best if you shoot 3-shot groups, but I'm trying to keep this thing moving along fast, so I'm just going to shoot one. So that's 10 yards, 5.5 inches from here to here. Now we'll go back to 15. "15 yards, 7.5 inches. Now we're going to go back to 20. "20 yards. That's about 6.5. So we're starting to come back down. Okay, that's about 27 yards. That's point on. And if I'd have shot a group of arrows, they would all been clustered around that. That's a little bit low, but if I'd have shot a group, it would have been there. So any distance that I'm going to shoot beyond 27 yards, rather than that point being right here to hit, I need to put the point right here. So from 0 to 27 yards, that point is going to be below the spot. At 27 yards, I'm going to have that point right on the spot. Beyond 27 yards, I'm going to have my point up here and have the arrow fall into it. Okay, that's a real good group, but you can see that I've passed my point on. My point on is at 27 yards, and this is about 29, 30, somewhere right there. What I've done here is I have written down the gaps in inches for each yard increment. So at 10 yards, my gap was 5.5 inches. At 15 yards, my gap was 7.5 inches. At 20 yards, my gap was 6.5 inches. At 25 yards, my gap was 3 inches. And at 27 yards, I'm point on. If you'll take those 4 gaps that I've got right there and average those together, you're going to get about 5.6. So I'm just going to call that 6 inches. So we've taken all those gaps and averaged them. A lot of people are going to memorize each individual gap for each yardage. I don't do that. Let's just remember 6 inches. That's all I want to focus on. All right, now here what I do is a little bit different than a lot of guys. We shot all those gaps at different distances, and we know how big the gap is for each 5-yard increment. We averaged them all together and we got 6 inches. So on this technique, it's very, very simple. I just say 6 inches. I'm gonna take the point of that arrow, I'm gonna draw back, I'm gonna put the point of that arrow 6 inches below the spot I wanna hit. And then I'm gonna forget about it. While I'm looking at it, I've set the gap, and I'm gonna look at the spot I wanna hit. I'm gonna put all my interest, all my focus right on that. And I'm just gonna look at that and pull, and it's gonna go off and it's gonna hit that. From 0 to 27 yards. Now when I get to 27 yards, that point will be right on there. But everything closer than 27 yards, I just put my point right here, subconsciously, 6 inches below that, put all my focus on here, and that's how I shoot. Now, as you shoot like that over the months, you're going to get better and better, and most likely you're going to get where you don't even think about how many inches down this field point is. You just put all your focus right here, and you're going to start shooting 100% instinctively, and you're not really even going to be aware of that. So that's kind of where I'm going with this. Now, when you're first starting this, start up real close. Start about 5 yards. When you can hit that tape every time at 5 yards, move back to 10. When you're really, really accurate at 10, move back to 15 and then 20. Where a lot of guys get in trouble is they move back too far or too fast. Get really good, move back in 5-yard increments. Another thing that I do is I hate shooting groups. I hate shooting groups. I don't shoot competitions. I don't shoot tournaments. I'm a hunter. There's nothing wrong with those guys that do that, but that's, to me, I like to put all my focus, 100% focus, into that one shot I'm shooting. So, kind of the bar, I think that old rule of thumb, if you shoot 6 arrows into a pie plate at 20 yards, you can hunt deer at 20 yards. I think that's a good rule of thumb, but I don't think you should shoot a group immediately at 6 arrows into a pie plate. Take that pie plate at 20 yards, take a long concentrated shot, shoot it, walk up there, think about it, think about what you did right, what you did wrong, pull that arrow, go back to 20 yards, shoot it again. That's how I like to shoot. I don't like to shoot groups. I think that walk up there to pull my arrow really helps me think about what I did right, or if it was a bad shot, what I did wrong. And I like to put all of my focus onto that one shot. Just like when you're hunting, you only get one shot. You can't make corrections, you only get one chance. But anyway, back to the pie plate. You know, if you can take 6 consecutive shots in a row and keep them in that pie plate, I think that's a good measure of where you ought to be hunting. To make this technique work really good, there's a few things you need to do. The most important thing is grip your bowstring with 3 fingers under the arrow with a high anchor. If you're anchoring low, it's just not going to work as good. You're going to have about a 3-foot gap. And to do this, I like to stay about 6 inches to 10 inches for my gap. And anchoring 3 fingers under the arrow up high right underneath your eye is going to help you do that. Also, I like my knocking point to be up really high. So I would tune my bow to get that thing as high as I can possibly go and still have good arrow flight. For me, that's about 3/4 of an inch. Also, if you can shoot full-length shafts, that's going to help out a lot. And the last thing is use a heavy point weight on your arrowheads. Take all these things into factor when you're tuning your bow, and you know, you don't have to do them all, but those are things that you can adjust, and you get that thing just where you want it, you can get your gap pretty short. I hope this has helped you guys. I've trained a lot of people, and I've shot a lot of different styles, but this technique right here, for some reason, people really pick up on this fast. You know, if you get to shooting good like this and want to try some other methods, there are some really good ways to shoot too, but I would learn this way first. If you want to start shooting purely instinctive, where you don't even look at that arrow, or if you want to try string walking or point of aim, or, you know, there's a number of different ways that are good too, but start with this. Kind of set your bar, see how good you are. I think you're going to get better fast with this. I've trained a lot of people. In about 4 weeks, most people can put 6 arrows into a pie plate at 20 yards, you know, almost every single time. So main thing is don't get discouraged. I don't want to see anybody quit because this is too hard to do. You know, there's a lot of stuff on the internet that there didn't used to be. I mean, it's real easy to learn, and I've kind of taken, you can break all these parts down a whole lot more involved if you want to. I've tried to, just like I said, lay out the nuts and bolts of this and make it real simple where anybody can understand it. But don't get discouraged. You know, if you have any questions, if you message me, I try to look at that and I'll see if I can help you out. But you guys, y'all have a good week, and we'll talk to you next time.